Let's go. Who wants to fight on the laser? Jedi Survivor is a good game, but there are three major issues with the gameplay that are keeping it from greatness, all of which are unrelated to the poor performance and lack of optimization, though that's not doing it any favors either. The first issue is something I hope they revise in the next game, and that is being able to change stances on the fly, instead of equipping two at a time at workbenches or meditation spots. It's very strange how the game throws so many new lightsaber stances at you early on, then locks them behind this poor notion of strategy, where you can only equip two at a given time. Aside from being unable to anticipate which stances work best for any given situation, the game fails to promote experimentation with these new stances when changing stances would actually be useful, and that's during combat. If you're going to give me 5 stances to choose from, let me use them whenever I want. Otherwise, I'm going to end up specializing in one over all the others and barely consider changing stances at all. Combat is largely the same from Fallen Order, and that's not necessarily a good thing. While the new stances are all enjoyable, there's still a few central problems to the core of Jedi Survivor's combat. The guard break system lifted straight out of Sekiro is only half-baked, as while you can wear down an enemy's guard by deflecting at the correct times, you are unable to execute the majority of enemies once their guard is depleted. Considering how many enemies are always attacking you at a given time, you're almost always swarmed by several and rarely fighting anyone one-on-one, it's really bizarre that breaking an enemy's guard simply staggers them for a quick hit and then regenerates completely thereafter. If an enemy's guard is gone, that should be the end of the enemy. And I really hate how the guard break system was implemented, as it's largely unsatisfying. The other major flaw with the combat is that for all stances save for dual wielding, they have attack animations which cannot be cancelled. It's incredibly annoying to initiate an attack on an enemy only for them to turn red, indicating that the next attack must be dodged to be negated, only to be unable to dodge out of the way as that attack animation must be seen through to completion. This was a major problem in Fallen Order and was carried over directly to Survivor, though bizarrely fixed for only one of the new stances. Why didn't Respawn fix this for all of them? This one change alone would have made the combat feel a lot more fluid and allow for more enjoyable volley between you and your opponent, especially when they continuously spam their red, unparryable attacks over and over again. The final issue with the combat is that there's no poise mechanic implemented here. If anyone manages to hit you from a ranged laser blast or through a melee attack, your attack will always be interrupted. So while you can't interrupt your own attacks by dodging out of the way, expect every other enemy to prevent your attacks from connecting. It's extremely annoying when you're overwhelmed, which happens to be the vast majority of all combat encounters. My final critique of Jedi Survivor has to do with it having a bit of an identity crisis, where it's taking aspects from both Sekiro and Dark Souls Elden Ring, while failing to understand significant differences between the two. We've already discussed the half-baked Sekiro influences relating to guard breaking, but the major problem Survivor fails to understand about Elden Ring is related to exploration. At the end of the game, you're left exploring all of the areas you missed while completing the main story. The problem here is the motivation to explore any of these areas at all, as once you have all of the upgraded maps, Survivor turns into just another Ubisoft game. Check your map for icons, go to the icons, clear the icons off the map. It's tedious and uninteresting, but it illustrates how Respawn fails to understand a player's motivations for exploration in the first place. The reason why exploration works in a game like Elden Ring is because every area traversed by the player ultimately leads to some kind of incremental improvement in overall weapon damage or player damage output. i.e., while exploring, you come across smithing stones, which allow you to upgrade the damage output of your weapon. But in Jedi Survivor, damage output is fixed. You do the same amount of damage per saber stance that you do at the beginning of the game as you do by the end of it. This results in a lot of monotony during combat, as you're fighting the same types of enemies over and over again, so instead of becoming more powerful throughout the game and dispatching lesser enemies quickly, you're left with equivalent encounters ad infinitum, which simply gets stale. Just give me some goddamn lightsaber upgrades to make all this exploration worthwhile, as I'd rather do more damage than get another fucking mustache. Jedi Survivor fails to understand the definition of a power fantasy in relation to weapon damage, which is typically a core focus for similar action games. The lack of incremental damage works for Sekiro because you're able to one-shot execute an enemy after depleting their guard, and exploration works in Elden Ring because your time spent exploring always improves your character. But Survivor is stuck in the middle here, not fully embracing the combat mechanics of Sekiro, and not fully embracing traditional RPG mechanics related to incremental damage a la Elden Ring.
Pick a lane, bitch!
The result is that Jedi Survivor is a good game, held back from greatness by poor design choices. This could have been a great game if Respawn had actually improved the issues with the combat from Fallen Order, instead of spending their time building out superfluous areas that ultimately don't add up to much beyond cool cosmetics or slightly more health points. It's unfortunate because so much time was spent developing extraneous areas of maps like Kobo, when that development time could have been spent on areas of actual consequence, like performance. Anyway, Survivor is still a good game, but I'm disappointed that it could have been a great one had Respawn leaned fully into either Sekiro or Elden Ring design philosophy, and not some weird amalgamation that doesn't exceed either influence. As such, I give Jedi Survivor a 7 out of 10. It's a good game, but definitely not worth $70. Wait for a sale and for significant performance patches to be made before picking this one up. What did you think of my assessment here, or of Jedi Survivor in general? Let me know down in the comments. And if you like this video, click some buttons so it actually gets out to more people. Thanks for watching. Later.